It's been almost 4 years, but we're back with more Tascam 388. Hey everyone, it's Mark. Welcome back. This hasn't been here in the shop for 3.5, almost 4 years, but it is back today. We're going to dig into some new problems. I assume you've probably already seen those other videos where we went through, found some problems in the power supplies and some broken wires and just got it all fixed, gave it back to him. But I never tested out this half. And as it turns out, we have 2 channels that are dead. And I don't know if that happened since I fixed it or if it was broken before I fixed this and just never got around to it. What I'm going to do today, and maybe the rest of the week, the rest of the month, who knows? You know how that last series went. I'm going to figure out what's dead in these channels, figure out how to fix it, and go through the factory method of adjusting all the fine-tuning and everything to make all these channels work as it left the factory. Since that other series of videos came out, I've had a lot of people asking if I could help them diagnose problems over here on their mixers. And I mean, all I could tell people is I never dug into that section, and now the mixer isn't even at my house because it's not mine, but now it is back. Now we are going to get into this. So hopefully this will answer some of the questions people had, and I guess there's nothing left to do but to get into it. All right, so I got some speakers set up here just off camera. Got my trusty old Shure microphone, and I'm starting to go through and just figure out exactly what I don't have. He said channel is dead. Well, what does that mean? Is the audio getting through? Is it the microphone in, the line in, the accessory send and receive? Is it not getting through to the stereo out, to the effect, to the auxiliary? I mean, there's so many ways a channel can be dead. It could also be just not getting to the tape. And if that's the case, it could just be the wires going to the head. I mean, it could be all kinds of things. So the first thing I'm doing is I've got a grid on paper and I have columns for each channel, and I'm labeling the test I'm doing, and I'm going to check if it's okay. One thing I've already noticed with just a little bit of my fiddling around here is that a lot of these pots are very scratchy. A lot of the connectors are scratchy, so I'm going to be cleaning all of that up while I have it apart. But at least for the purpose of this test, it's good enough. At least I just want to know what's getting where. So first test, I have all these switched to microphone input. I got my XLR. I'm just going to go down the row, just give the mic a tap or a blow, and just make sure something's coming out of the speakers. So channel 1, which he said is dead. We seem to be getting something out of it. Does not seem to be related to wiggling the cord. So 1 is iffy. I'm going to give that a question. 2, perfect. 3, great. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now he had said 8 also didn't have audio. I seem to have it at least through the mic in, coming to the stereo out. That doesn't mean it's getting to the tape. Next I'm going to get my XLR adapter, and I'm just going to do the exact same thing down the line in. First you have to switch the input source to line. Okay, channel 1 dead for the line in. Okay, all of them work, but I think channel 8 line in has a bad jack. Okay, this is not very exciting for you to watch. I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to go down the accessory receive. I don't know, that might be about all that's left. I'll see what else I can test. I'll keep writing it down. I'll bring you back. All right, so I went through all the inputs and outputs that I could possibly come up with combinations to test out between the cables I have out here. And basically everything I tried worked perfectly fine, except channel 1 had all kinds of problems. There was a few things that came through, but most of it was not. So I'm going to start tearing into this. I decided to unplug it, not because I'm a wimp, but because there happens to be a thunderstorm right now. That's all I need is to send a lightning shock through me. Alright, if you've seen the last videos, here's a familiar view. Here's the belt I put on last time, and all the stuff I spent a lot of time getting straightened out. So you take the bottom panel off, this goes across here, just pull that off carefully. I've already pulled those off. Now I'm about to take all the nuts off the pots in the front. All right, so here is the board for that channel. There really isn't a whole lot going on here. I was expecting there to be a lot more. So I'm just gonna kind of carefully inspect this, poke around with a meter, see if I can see anything obvious. But judging by how little's going on here, I'm gonna suspect that the problem is not on this board, and it's probably in one of these more pain in the ass to get to boards. I'll bring you back in a minute and tell you if I find anything out. Okay, I haven't been able to find anything wrong on this board, so I decided what I'm going to do. I wanted to pull all of these cards out and clean the pots and just kind of clean the goo off them. You know, it's just been in use for how many decades, so there's just a lot of filth in there and stuff. So what I'm going to do is take out channels 1 and 2, clean them up really well, swap them 1 for 2. Then the rest I'm just going to take out one at a time, clean it all up, put it back in. And then I can throw it back together and see if the problem stayed on channel 1 or moved to channel 2. Then that will isolate whether it's this board or whether it's down here. I'm going to put you on time lapse because who knows how long this is going to take. So while I was off camera, I got all the pots, switches, knobs, everything all sprayed over here with some diagnostic contact cleaner. I took off all the plastic knobs, all the sliders, and I've got it in a container of hot water and just soap. And I'm just going to kind of let this soak and shake it up every once in a while just to clean all the grime off the knobs. But I don't need the knobs to test it. I'm going to clean up the front of this, start putting all of these channels back in, and like I said earlier, swapping 1 and 2 around, and then I can test it out and see if my problem stayed or moved, and it probably stayed. Alright, I got all the channels slipped back in, but I did make a mistake, so here's your little warning so you don't make the same mistake. The input switch at the top, that has to go on before these channels go back in. I forgot to do that, so I have to take all of them all the way back out just to put the knob back on because they're still soaking in my dish soap over here. But anyway, it's hooked back up. Good enough to at least test. There is a slight chance that everything will start working again. A couple of these pots, if they were making no connection whatsoever, it could just kill the channel, but I doubt it. Probably what's going to happen is it's still going to be a problem on channel 1, and then I'm going to have to dig in a little bit deeper. I might as well stop blabbing and just find the answer. Channel 1. Channel 1 now works. Channel 2. Okay, that's good news. That means that card I took out, that was the problem, and there's not a lot on there, so I should be able to figure that out pretty easily. So I'm gonna flip this thing back up on end, unhook everything, and take that back out. I'm shocked. I totally did not call it. Don't ever take my advice again. All right, so this is the circuit where our problem lies. Now I know I'm not the best electrical troubleshooter in the world, not even the best I know, but my little method for trying to figure out where to start on a board is first, what physically moves? In this case, nothing is physically moving except this row of switches and potentiometers. I wouldn't think any of that would be the problem, but I will check, especially these switches, because I would imagine there is a way that these could fail or this could fail that would kill the whole thing. So after things that physically move, the next thing I look for is things that get hot. And they're not planning for anything to get hot here because there's no heat sinks. I don't think anything is getting too hot because there's no discolored areas on the board. But the main culprits are always going to be these little integrated circuit chips. In this case, these are op amps, except for this one, which has something to do with the LED circuit. So that wouldn't take out the entire audio. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through, check these switches and potentiometers. Then I'm going to focus in on these. That's the game plan. Here we go. All right, so to test these switches, it's really easy. Double pull, double throw switch. The center is common and it's just going that way or that way. And as for the left-right switch that's twice as large, it's just 2 pairs of those. Right now we have them all out. So right now the entire bottom row should be connected. and these up here are also the bottom. Okay, now the top row should be disconnected. Oh, and I forgot this one. Okay, now I'll push them all in, and we should get the opposite results. The whole bottom should be disconnected, the top row should be connected. Okay, all our switches are good. Moving on to the potentiometers. And again, this is a long shot, but it's just a good idea to eliminate it. So this is 5K, 10K, 10K, 20K. Okay, so we got a whole mixture. But we're going to be in the kilo-ohm range. Turn the potentiometer all the way one direction, doesn't really matter. What do we have? 1.5K. And on the other side, basically short. Flip it the other way. Yep, basically straight through. 1.5K. So, not terribly exciting. You don't need to watch me go all the way through here, but you get the point. Alright, so I've spent some time looking at the schematic, and I am feeling pretty strongly that U102 is the problem. I can't just hook it up to my power supply because I need plus 15, minus 15, and plus 5. So like rigging all that up with power supplies was just going to be a pain. So I think probably what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take U102 out from another board and just swap them around, hook it up, and see if it works. I was hoping that this was something easy to find because you never know on electronics this age. It could be something that's completely obsolete. Not the case. These are less than $1. So if that's all it is, great. I've racked my brain on this enough tonight. I'm going to call it a day, and we will come back and pick this up probably next weekend. So see you then. Alright everyone, I am back real quick. I work 4/10s, so I don't get to do much during the week, and it is my Wednesday night. But I was just going over the schematic, and I just wanted to reinforce what I had mentioned before because I don't think I made it very clear. So the purple line in that whole circuit is the microphone input. So I've highlighted the path it takes. The red is the line in, and it has a very short path. The blue is the tape input or something? Yeah, tape. So I didn't test that one because it's an RCA input, I believe, and it didn't have an RCA cable out here that I could hook up to the microphone. But based on this circuit, I'm assuming that also doesn't work because all three of those come together and go right through this input switch and then into this op amp right here, which was the one I pointed out before, which is U102. Now that has two op amps in it. The other half is up here, and I believe that half must be good still, because what this red circuit is over here, sorry I ran out of colors, this is where the send and receive external accessory, whatever, comes in. So you can see that comes up, comes through this other half of this op amp, comes down here, goes through some stuff, comes down. This is the connector that goes to the slide pot, and comes back. So this is the part that works. These three don't. And here you can see the common thread. We already know that switch is good, so we're going through this op amp. And then after that op amp, it joins up with this circuit, and that works. So I'm pretty sure that's going to be the guy. Now earlier I said that that was a really inexpensive op amp and they were easy to get. I was kind of wrong. I didn't look very hard. They're actually difficult to get, but it's such a basic design that there's equivalent models that'll work about the same. Now, if you really get into the weeds, you can find people that have done comparisons of all these op amp chips, and they've said like, oh, this one sounds hollow, this one sounds full and rich, and I have to say I think most of that is probably utter nonsense. There might be some truth to it, but I would really like to see a double-blind study where somebody compared two preamp circuits where everything was identical except for the specific op amp they used. I really feel like any kind of distortion or anything that's going to be introduced by an op amp is going to be completely dwarfed by the distortion introduced by recording 8 tracks onto a 1/4-inch tape. So that being said, I already happen to have a couple of op amp chips that are direct replacements on this cheap little amplifier board I have that does not work. So possibly one of these is already dead, but I'm just going to try to swap it in there. And once I go through all my factory settings and all that, all those adjustments, then we'll see if it works and sounds the same. And, you know, if not, I guess I could always try to track down the original, but I don't think it's going to be necessary. So I'll get off my high horse there. Now you see why I think that's a problem. And when I come back on my proper weekend, we will replace that. Another thing to mention, look how nice all these knobs came out. I ended up kind of forgetting about them and leaving them in that water and soap solution for like 48 hours. But I rinsed them off well, dumped them out here to dry, and they look a lot better. Here's a picture of the water at the time that I dumped them out. Pretty gross. So yeah, these knobs are going back on. That's it for now. We will see you in the next clip. We are back. You just saw me put this all back together and replace that op-amp chip. Since somebody I'm sure is going to ask, the original chip is a Mitsubishi M5238, and I have replaced it with a Texas Instruments NE5532. Again, it's a very similar op-amp with very similar numbers. Is it exactly the same? No, but it should work, unless it doesn't, and we're about to find out. So I'm kind of assuming I've identified the correct chip that was the problem, and I'm also assuming that I've identified a chip on that junk board that isn't also broken. So if this doesn't work, I guess I'll try the other chip. Okay, channel 1 should work because I swapped 1 and 2. Okay, channel 2, moment of truth. Still doing the same thing. Okay, everyone. Welcome back. It has been about a week since that last clip because, again, Sunday, I had to go back to work next day. So I had a whole week to just think about this, and I was looking at the schematic, and remember I replaced U102, and that didn't fix it. I was like, well, what's the deal? It's come straight through there. That's not exactly the case. I overlooked this. So it only comes through here when it's the button for pre and post is pushed into pre. If it's pushed into post, then that line just stops. And the signal comes down here and goes through the EQ circuit. So once it comes through the EQ circuit, what's it doing? It's coming through U106. So I didn't turn on the camera, but I put the original IC back in U102, replaced U106 with one of my little TI op amps, and bam, it worked. So I will turn everything on and just prove it to you. I know y'all probably just think I'm an idiot now because I've screwed up. All my guesses so far on this have been wrong. Here's channel 1, and here's channel 2 that used to be dead. And just go right down the line. So that was it. I can't tell you what's wrong with yours. If you have a dead channel, there's, no way to know that it's the same thing. But at least in my case, it was U106, which is these two op amps. So that was it. That guy right there took out the entire mixer, basically. So I think I'm going to wrap up this video there. This has gotten long enough. I am going to come back for a part, whatever I'm on, talking about setting everything up. Because in the manual, there's a procedure for setting up the levels of everything. And I think that would be a good job to go through. Because up here, all along here, these are all potentiometers. And I don't know what all of them are for, but some of these are for adjusting the input and output levels so that everything is more or less consistent. You don't want to have two channels, both set with the exact same settings and have one way louder than the other. So there's a way to do that, and it involves a frequency generator, an oscilloscope. I think I have everything I need to do it. I haven't started digging into it yet because I wanted to clearly get the channels all working first. So now that I think I'm there, that's going to be next. So that's going to wrap up this video. Sorry we kind of went down a few trails and false leads, but that's how this kind of stuff works out sometimes. Thanks for coming along on this one. There will be another part, probably in the next few weeks. So watch for that, and we will see you then.